It's San Diego Comic-Con season, and we're getting big reveals left and right. Marvel fans are eating especially well, with Kevin Feige laying out his plans for Phases 4 and 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Part of his plans include the return of the Avengers named to theaters, with 2 Avengers movies in the pipeline. In this video, we'll be looking at those Avengers movies and other revelations from SDCC. It looks like Phase 6 of the MCU will end with another epic pair of Avengers movies. We can't imagine how exciting and challenging it must be to walk in Feige's shoes. While we lose our minds over the controlled trickle of new MCU content, the mastermind and his studio are thinking several phases ahead. At SDCC this year, we got a look at some of their upcoming movies and a projected timeline of Phases 5 and 6. While it looked like Endgame was the last we'd see of the Avengers name, it's looking like a group of Avengers will be assembling to finish off Phase 6. The titles of these movies are Avengers: The Kang Dynasty and Avengers: Secret Wars. If you're familiar with the comics in the slightest, you know that this is exciting. For those of you who have only been following along with the movies, let us cut you in on the excitement. The Kang Dynasty was an iconic Avengers storyline that ran through around 16 issues of Avengers in the early aughts. Written by Kurt Busiek and featuring art from the likes of Ivan Reis and Rick Remender, it was an incredibly bold storyline for the time. For one thing, it featured some stuff that Marvel wished they hadn't published just before 9/11, but with that bit of sourness aside, the Kang Dynasty is often considered to be one of the Avengers' finest outings. Kang and his son Marcus arrive and announce to the Avengers and the UN that they're planning on taking over the world. They justify their plot by showing the Avengers all the dark and stormy futures that await Earth unless Kang is in charge. The storyline that follows sprawls across the Earth and the cosmos, but you don't need us to tell you that the Avengers do end up saving the day. Looking at the comics, you can see that the Kang Dynasty brings together a lot of corners from the Marvel Universe. For those of you wondering when the deviants and the plot twist from Eternals will be relevant across the MCU, this movie may just have the answer. But all in all, the dynasty of the comics is very much out there, and we can only wonder if the movie will be as bold or if it'll be a bit more restrained, as Infinity War was relative to its source material. But what should be especially interesting is finding out what the Avengers will look like when they confront Kang. The storyline of the comics features the standard team of Avengers, but many of them are indisposed right now. It's safe to say that Thor, Doctor Strange, and Captain Marvel will unite once more, but will Shang-Chi be an Avenger by then? What about Spider-Man? Might they team up with the Eternals? This is really exciting. You might be thinking this is exciting enough on its own, but your heart rate is about to go up even further. Let's talk about Secret Wars. There are technically 2 storylines from the comics that are called Secret Wars. The first one, which was published in the 80s, was mostly an excuse to sell toys, but it did introduce us to Spider-Man's iconic symbiote suit, and that led us to Venom. The MCU will probably opt to adapt the 2015 version of Secret Wars. Written by Jonathan Hickman and illustrated by Asad Ribic, the whole story is really hard to sum up. Hickman loves to build off his past work, and the 2015 Secret Wars was the culmination of his landmark run on the Fantastic Four and the entire Avengers line, but we'll try to condense it down for y'all. Stop us if you've heard this before. Due to some shenanigans, the universes of the Marvel multiverse are having incursions. In this context, the alternate Earths are literally crashing into each other. The Illuminati of the 616 universe decides to blow up any Earth that's about to collide with theirs, but Steve Rogers isn't happy about it and the plan doesn't even work. It's ultimately none other than Doctor Doom who's able to craft a patchwork battle world from the pieces of the multiverse, and the survivors of the final incursion band together to restore the multiverse. The ambition of the storyline is not to be underestimated. This was Marvel's attempt at doing a complete reboot of their comics. It was their Crisis on Infinite Earths. And regardless of what happened to the comics afterwards, Secret Wars and the almost 1,000 issues that led to it stand as a modern classic of comics. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness has already set up the incursions, and Strange has gotten an idea to create an Illuminati of his own. A Fantastic Four movie is on the way, and since the MCU's multiverse is tied to its timeline, Kang is involved in this too. We didn't think Marvel could ever reach a scale like Infinity War and Endgame again, but we may just be wrong. Marvel is targeting a May 2025 release date for the Kang Dynasty and a November 2025 date for Secret Wars. That's ambitious, and we're worried that plans will end up changing. If they don't though, then these will be the hardest 2 years of being an MCU fan yet. Next, in other news, what were Marvel's near-term announcements at Comic-Con? Marvel Studios have had to rejigger their planning for many reasons ever since they successfully ended Phase 3. For one thing, a whole bunch of Marvel IPs that used to belong to other studios have now reverted back to Marvel. On top of that, the COVID-19 pandemic messed up their slow burn plans. At SDCC, Marvel revealed a major shakeup in the timeline of the MCU. For starters, Phase 4 was supposed to stretch through 2023, but is now coming to a quicker end. We've only got 2 more major Phase 4 projects left. The She-Hulk series will be streaming in August, and then we'll bid Phase 4 adieu with Black Panther: Wakanda Forever in November. Speaking of the Black Panther sequel, you can catch the trailer online. It's no secret that this movie has faced lots of challenges challenges, particularly the passing of Chadwick Boseman and the controversy surrounding Letitia Wright. None of it seems to be impacting the movie though, and it's looking like it might even be better than the first one. Up next, Marvel's plans for Phase 5. We got to see pretty finalized plans for Phase 5 and a more tentative plan for Phase 6. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania will be kicking off the 5th phase in February of 2023, and the first half of the year will continue the stories of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Echo, Captain Marvel, and Loki. The Secret Invasion series will follow up on the story of the Kree, which started in Captain Marvel and was teased in Spider-Man: Far From Home. Attendees got to see trailers for Quantumania and Guardians, but those who didn't go will have to make do with written descriptions. It's actually looking like Marvel won't be focusing too much on the multiversal saga in this phase. The latter half of the year looks like it'll focus more on the ground-level stuff. Blade, Ironheart, and Agatha: Coven of Chaos will be hanging out on the fringes of the MCU before we get a brand new 18-episode Daredevil series. Finally, the phase will close out by catching up on the schemes of Valentina de Fontaine. Sam Wilson will get his first Captain America movie in May of 2024, and then Thunderbolts will conclude the phase in July. Finally, the irritating vagueness of Phase 6. When it comes to Phase 6, we got a whole bunch of release dates, but not much information on what's going to be filling the slots. Kevin Feige confirmed that Phases 4 to 6 were the multiverse saga, and we already talked about how this saga will come to an end with the 1-2 punch of Avengers movies at the end of this phase. Beyond that, the only other project we know about is the Fantastic Four movie, which was supposed to close out Phase 4 but has now been relocated to the opener of Phase 6. The phase will kick off in November of 2024 and last through basically 1 year, finishing up in November 2025. It's probably worth noting that we shouldn't be too sure about plans that far in the future, but Marvel Studios has become really efficient now, and the phases since Endgame have been pretty short in general. And you know what's crazy about the architecture of the MCU? Marvel Studios is already thinking about the future of the MCU past the multiverse saga. This really is a remarkable time to be a superhero fan. That's it for today's video. Have you read either the Kang Dynasty or Secret Wars? What are your theories for how Marvel will set these events up for the future? And do you think a multiversal crisis can top the stakes of Thanos' works in the Infinity Saga? Let us know in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.